Hi, I'm Matt McDonald, Managing Partner of Notley Ventures, and today we're going to talk about scalability. If you haven't watched the videos on unit economics or building a pro forma, I suggest you stop right now and then come back once you've had a chance to watch those two brief videos. So if we're thinking about scalability, the definition of scalability is that the fixed costs per unit of goods sold decreases as you sell more units. So what does that mean? Let's use our unit economic example from the previous video. So if you sold one hat for $10, you can see that your fixed cost is 10% of the revenue that you earn when you produce one unit. So now let's imagine that we sell 100 units. So now your revenue is going to be $1,000. Your cost of goods sold will be, you'll multiply the number of units by the cost per unit. Though this number can also decrease as a percentage of revenue, but for simplicity's sake, we're just going to assume that it will, that you would multiply your cost of goods sold by the number of units. And so you end up with a gross margin of $600. 100 times your previous gross margin. But now you have to think about your fixed costs. So now let's imagine that your fixed costs, because you have the same building and you have the same machines, stay the same whether you produce 1 or 100 hats. So now what's happened is that your fixed costs have gone from being 10% of your revenue for 1 unit sold to being 1% of your revenue when you sell 100. And so what you'll see happen, again, let's imagine that the selling, general, and administrative also stays the same. So you have one person in your single factory who's producing your hats, and they can produce at least 1,000 hats. So now in this example, your selling, general, and administrative goes from 10% of your revenue also to 1%. And what that leaves you with from a profit perspective is not the $400 you would expect, right, if you just multiplied each of these numbers by the 100 units sold, but in fact, it's $598. And this is exactly what we mean by scalability. As fixed costs, or selling, general, and administrative, shrink as a percentage of revenue per unit sold. So now let's imagine that you're going to produce 1,000 hats. In this example, the revenue will still be the same. So we'll multiply the $10 per hat times 1,000. So we have $10,000 of revenue. Cost of goods sold, again for simplicity's sake, let's assume that that's constant. So we have a $4,000 expense for cost of goods sold, leaving us with $6,000 in gross margin. But now, we found that we needed to hire more people. So let's say that each individual employee still working in the same facility can only produce 500 hats. In this example, we would pay $2 for the employees because now we have 2. And we would keep our fixed costs. We still only have one manufacturing facility at $1. So now our profitability has gone from $4, right, or 40% of the revenue, to 59% at 100 units, or 59.8%. And now our profitability at 1,000 units is going to be $5,997. And so what you see is that the profitability as a percentage of revenue continues to increase the more units sold. And that's exactly what we mean by scalability. The most common example of this is a piece of software. And you see this a lot in the software industry where there's a big investment up front to build that piece of software, but then you can sell the same thing over and over and over and over again. And so that becomes a scalable product. So similarly in your organization, what are those products that you can repurpose and reuse so that your fixed costs and your selling in general and administrative go down as a percentage of the revenue that you make, the more units that you sell.